D'Angelo Russell has been traded from the Lakers to the Nets again. We've seen this one before, but this deal in particular is D'Lo and Maxwell Lewis and 3 second-round picks in exchange for Dorian Finney-Smith and Shake Milton. And this might not seem like a huge deal to you on the surface, but it does tell us a lot about the future plans of each of these teams. Let's begin with the LA Lakers. They have been looking for an upgrade on the wing the entirety of the season. Max Christie's been playing more for them lately, but they don't have anybody that plays like Dorian Finney-Smith does. Someone that guards, someone that can hit outside shots, someone that gives them size and defense. Dalton Knecht has been good. Obviously, Austin Reeves is good. Christie's been fine in place of that, but this really rounds out their starting lineup in a nice way, and they have minimized D'Lo's role basically since the first couple of weeks of the season, and they've been trying to trade him, honestly, for 2 whole seasons. He's been the trade block guy, and I would expect that he is now going to be available as a buyout player. I don't think the Nets are going to play D'Angelo Russell unless they think that they can rope in a third team here and try and move him somewhere else. It's pretty clear based off this trade that D'Lo was used as a contract, that it doesn't actually have that much value unless the Nets can get an extra second-round pick out of a team. Once this deal is fully finalized, if they can't rope in a third team, I would expect D'Lo to hit the buyout market and join a contending team that, importantly, is not over the second apron. Remember, the second apron rules mean that you cannot get any buyout players if you're over it. So Boston can't get him. Some of these other second apron teams cannot get him. But D'Lo is certainly going to be someone that teams are going to be looking at on the buyout market. The other interesting thing here for the Lakers is the way that this moves around the salaries on their roster, because this was the big contract that they had. Any move where they were going to be getting Jimmy Butler or Cam Johnson or any of these other guys that are available for trade right now, D'Lo was going to be in the deal because their other contracts are just more useful to them as players. Rui makes like 17 a year. Austin Reeves, of course, makes between 12 and 13. There's a couple of other guys, but any of these deals where they were going to be adding a big contract, D'Lo had to be involved. And so they used that piece. And unless, again, they rope in a third team, you have to wait like a month or two before trading a guy you just got. So that D'Lo salary is gone, and then DFS, obviously they want to keep him. They just traded for him. But if an opportunity came up to trade for, I don't know, De'Aaron Fox or somebody, they don't really have that option anymore because they don't have that contract of D'Lo on the books. And that was my first thought, because when I saw the deal, obviously the important thing for the Lakers is they did not give up a first-round pick. They still have multiple first-round picks to trade if they choose to, and there have been plenty of reports that they would be willing to if the right deal came about. They've been aggressive in looking for guys like Dorian Finney-Smith. I think Cam Johnson was another option for them that helped them now, also help them over the next couple of years. They're not looking for an immediate, rental, let's try and push for a title piece. They're trying to round out the roster and just be a more competent basketball team, and DFS certainly helps them with that. But there are other options out there, guys like Nikola Vucevic, Zach LaVine. We've talked about Butler, but again, without that D'Lo contract, they've got to start looking at some of those smaller deals like someone like Vucevic, which I think would be a really interesting addition alongside Anthony Davis. Jonas Valanciunas in Washington is another answer. If they wanted to have a little bit more flexibility in terms of playing AD at the 4 than having another guy play at the full time at the 5, there are some options for them out there. And again, they have first-round picks still available to trade if they want to. But to me, this reads a little bit more like an in-between kind of move for the Lakers, where this might be the only move that they make. Like when they brought in Rui Hachimura, and it was like, okay, this is a guy that we think is going to help us long-term. We're not going to give up a ton. We're going to give up second-round picks the way that they did in this deal. And Rui's been a solid addition for them over the years, obviously much younger than what DFS is. But I don't think this necessarily signals some big next move for the Lakers. It's probably just good value for them. Second-round picks aren't a huge deal to them, and they want to be a more competent basketball team. And then maybe see how things go over the next couple of months. Maybe this addition really increases their output defensively. They're much better. They're much more well-rounded. And then they have the opportunity to maybe trade Rui, maybe trade Austin Reeves and some picks for a little bit more of a star upgrade if they see significant improvements in the roster. Obviously, that's a bunch of Lakers stuff. For the Nets, it's pretty obvious. They're trying to get rid of everybody that they can. They got rid of Dennis Schroeder for some seconds. They're getting rid of DFS here for some seconds. I wouldn't have been surprised if they were able to find a team to give them like a lottery protected or a top 20 protected first-round pick for DFS because he can guard and he can shoot. But ultimately, seems like fair price for them, fair value. Again, I would be surprised if D'Lo's on the roster. Quite frankly, I don't want him on the roster. I don't want them to try and win any more games as a Nets fan. And although typically buyout players are not all that impactful, they seem way more impactful on paper than they actually end up being. If D'Lo does hit the buyout market, I actually genuinely think that he would be a good upgrade for some teams. I think he's been almost minimalized too much. I'm not a D'Lo guy. I wasn't a D'Lo guy when he was in Brooklyn, and he made an all-star team as like the 8th reserve guard. I still think that he can provide value, and he actually wasn't being used enough in LA. Some of the advanced numbers, some of the on-off stuff actually really favored playing D'Lo more, and I think there was just a disconnect there in LA at a certain point where JJ Redick clearly didn't like his competitiveness. It just the pace at which he played was just not something that JJ Redick wanted to deal with anymore, and they just kind of buried him. And so that was probably a big motivation for them as well, is just to get a guy out of there that probably doesn't want to be there anymore, and then I'm not sure JJ Redick and the coaching staff really wanted to be there anymore either. So some things to look forward to for each of these teams. For the Lakers, of course, they have those couple of first-round picks they can still move, even if it would require trading away Rui or Austin Reeves from a contract perspective to get one of these bigger names. It is still an option for them. It's just more difficult at this point without the D'Lo contract, but I would expect some improvement from them. Certainly defensively, you're looking at a lineup now of Reeves, maybe you put Connect out there, LeBron, DFS, AD, Rui. There's just a lot more combinations here where Rui was kind of the only guy they could play at the 4 alongside AD because there's no Jared Vanderbilt. They're missing a couple of other guys. Now DFS can play that spot. DFS actually has a decent amount of experience playing at the 5 as well. If they wanted to go super small, they could go Rui and DFS in the front court, and of course LeBron out there as well. A really, really interesting addition to their rotation for a team that needed wing flexibility. Saves them a little bit of money here as well. And so overall, I think this is a smart move for the Lakers. I'm going to give them a B grade. I'm not sure what the overall direction of the team is. If they don't add any more pieces, this isn't a competitive team. So quite frankly, I'd probably rather just have the second round picks than trading them away for DFS, who is just going to continue to get older. And if you're not competing, adding some of those guys at the deadline doesn't make a ton of sense, but maybe this does signal a significant turnaround for them. Meanwhile, for the Nets, I'm going to give them like a B, B plus as well. A couple of seconds is fine. You can maybe get something else out of D'Lo. They're just trying to get rid of players left and right. Schroeder's gone. Now DFS is gone. I would expect Cam Johnson to be gone before the deadline for at least one, if not 2 first-round picks. There's some other guys moving into the future as well, like Nick Claxton, that are probably going to get moved. The Nets are pretty desperately trying to, I think they're at 12 or 13 wins as of recording of this video, and they were barely supposed to get to 20. So they're doing an early on OKC or a Utah Jazz style, let's go like 5-40 the rest of the way kind of deal here. So they're just trying to get rid of a bunch of pieces and lose a bunch of games. Again, the only other thing I would keep an eye on here for each of these teams is when the deal actually gets finalized. Sometimes we get breaking news and it's announced the deal has been agreed to, but it doesn't actually go through because teams are waiting to maybe turn it into a 3-team deal, add another team, but they have already agreed to the parameters of the trade. And so maybe in a day or two, they haven't quite finalized it and D'Lo can go somewhere else. Some teams willing to just give up a second-round pick in order to get D'Lo and not go through the buyout market. Again, maybe a team that is over the second apron and isn't able to add him. And maybe if something changes with someone like De'Aaron Fox and he suddenly becomes available and the Lakers want to grab him, maybe they just put the DFS contract in there. They don't finalize the trade initially. One of those things that maybe to keep an eye on, but I think ultimately this is the deal that we're probably going to have unless someone really wants D'Lo, which I doubt. And really, we'll just have to see over the next month to 6 weeks what direction the Lakers go in here after adding DFS. Are they going to be a little bit more willing to trade away some of these first-round picks as they reportedly have been? As I speculated they would at the beginning of the year, once they got off to this great start, it looked like JJ Redick was going to make a really big difference for them. Adding a star or at least someone like Nikola Vucevic or something to this roster started to make a lot of sense for them, and being willing to trade away first-round picks, try and make one more run at this thing with LeBron there. But if they don't get much better defensively with DFS there and have some kind of significant turnaround, I don't think we're going to be looking at a situation where they're trading multiple first. Maybe they go into the offseason, look to add one more guy in what could be LeBron's final season next year, but a big evaluation period now over the next 4 to 6 weeks for the Lakers.